Lara sat by the window of her small bedroom, her hands resting lightly on the windowsill as she gazed up at the sky. The moon was full tonight, a blood-red hue casting a mystical glow over the world. It was rare, so rare, in fact, that everyone in the town was buzzing about it. The blood moon had come, and with it, an air of excitement and anticipation. She didn't quite understand it, but there was something about the event that felt important. Lara was a young woman, in her early 20s, with soft brown skin, delicate features, and long, dark hair that cascaded down her back like a river of silk. She had lived in this quiet town her entire life, leading a simple, peaceful existence. She had never been in a serious relationship, never truly fallen in love. And although her friends often spoke of passion, lust, and romance, she could never quite imagine it for herself. Lara was untouched, pure, innocent. It wasn't that she didn't want love. She simply had never experienced it. Tonight, however, felt different. The energy in the air was palpable, as though something extraordinary was about to happen. Her friends had all gathered at a party in town, celebrating the event, but Lara felt strangely out of place among them. She had always preferred quiet nights, books, tea, the soft hum of the wind outside. Yet, tonight, she couldn't shake the feeling that she needed to go out, to witness the blood moon with her own eyes. After some hesitation, she finally decided to join the gathering. The venue was packed with people, the music upbeat and the chatter lively. Lara felt somewhat like an outsider, standing by the side, quietly watching the interactions around her. But that's when she saw him. Caden. He stood across the room, his gaze fixed on her in an almost predatory way. His presence was magnetic, there was something about him that made everything else fade away. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark, tousled hair and striking amber eyes that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. His face was sharp, almost regal, but there was a ruggedness to him that immediately drew her in. It was as if he wasn't like the others here, he was different. Unusual. And yet, there was something comforting about the way he looked at her, as if he had been waiting for her all along. Lara's heart fluttered in her chest as their eyes met across the crowded room. She couldn't look away. It was as if the universe had aligned them in that moment, and everything else faded into the background. The air between them seemed to crackle with an unspoken tension, one that made her breath catch in her throat. Without a word, he made his way over to her. His movements were fluid, purposeful, and when he reached her side, his deep voice sent a shiver through her. "You look different tonight," he said, his tone smooth, almost hypnotic. "There's something in the air, don't you think?" Lara could only nod, a mixture of awe and confusion swirling inside her. She had never met him before, and yet his presence felt familiar, as if she had known him her whole life. I don't really understand all this," Lara said, her voice soft. "The blood moon, what does it mean?" He gave her a small, knowing smile. "Some things are better felt than explained. But I think you'll understand soon enough." His words were cryptic, and she felt a knot form in her stomach. But there was something about him, something deep inside her that stirred. It was as though his presence awakened something in her, something she didn't even know existed. Before she could speak again, he gently took her hand, and the touch sent a shockwave of warmth through her body. Lara wasn't sure if it was the moon, or the way he looked at her, but in that moment, everything seemed to align. The world outside faded, and there was only him. Caden led her outside, where the full moon bathed the earth in an eerie red glow. They stood together in silence, the sound of the wind whispering through the trees. Lara's heart raced as she tried to make sense of the strange feelings stirring inside her. Everything about this night, about Caden, felt otherworldly, as though the blood moon itself had brought them together for a reason. "Do you feel it?" Caden's voice broke the silence. His eyes were locked on hers, intense and filled with something she couldn't quite name. "The pull of the moon." Lara's breath caught. She nodded slowly, unsure of what was happening, but certain that this moment would change her life forever. She didn't know who he was or what was happening between them, but she knew that, in some inexplicable way, their fates were now intertwined. Caden stepped closer, his gaze never leaving hers. Slowly, he reached up and brushed a strand of hair from her face. And she couldn't help. Without a word, Caden's did his thing. Universe had led up to this very moment. Lara's mind swirled with what she had never felt before. Everything was different. The moonlight glowed brighter around them, all of it made her feel alive in a way she had never known. Everything was powerful. It was as if their souls were entwining. And as the moon reached its peak, casting an even brighter red hue across the world, there was no going back. Whatever had begun under this blood moon was more than just a thing, it was the beginning of something far greater, something that neither of them could have prepared for. As the it ended, Caden pulled back slightly, his eyes filled with a mixture of something pure and something deeper, something that felt ancient. He gazed at her with intensity. "This isn't just a night, Lara," he whispered. "This is the beginning of something powerful. And I won't be able to stay away from you." Lara's heart skipped a beat, a mix of confusion and excitement flooding her. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure: the man standing before her, with his mysterious eyes and burning desire, was unlike anyone she had ever met. And tonight, under the blood moon, her world was about to change forever. Lara's world shifted the moment she found out she was pregnant. She hadn't expected it. How could she? After all, her life had been peaceful, almost boring, until that fateful night under the blood moon. But there was no denying the truth. The child growing inside her was the result of a night that, for reasons she still didn't fully understand, had changed everything. Days passed, and Lara tried to push the truth to the back of her mind, but it lingered, like a shadow that refused to be ignored. It was impossible to ignore the strange sensations she had started to feel. Her senses had become more attuned to everything around her. Smells were sharper, sounds more pronounced. She could hear the rustling of leaves outside her window, the distant hum of the city, and even the faintest shift in the air. Her body felt different, too, more alive, more aware. It wasn't just physical. Lara's dreams were vivid, filled with images of wolves running through moonlit forests, shadows that danced beneath the red moon, and a feeling of deep, untapped power coursing through her. At first, she thought it was just the result of stress, of adjusting to her pregnancy. But the dreams felt real. And with each passing night, they seemed to intensify. But none of it made sense. How could a one-night encounter have such a profound impact on her? And why did she feel this undeniable connection to the man she had spent only a few hours with? Caden. She hadn't heard from him since the night they shared. She had tried to forget about him, convinced that their encounter had been nothing more than a moment of passion sparked by the moon's energy. Yet, every time she thought about him, her heart skipped a beat. There was something about him that she couldn't shake, something that made her long to see him again. And then, as if fate had decided she couldn't avoid him any longer, Caden appeared again. It was a cool evening when he knocked on her door. Lara had just returned from an appointment with her doctor, her mind still reeling from the confirmation of her pregnancy. When she opened the door, she was startled to see Caden standing there, his amber eyes gleaming in the soft light of the hallway. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply stood there, staring at each other, as if both waiting for the other to make the first move. Lara's heart raced, and she could feel her breath catch in her throat. He was as striking as she remembered, his features sharp and rugged, his dark hair tousled, and his presence commanding. But there was something different about him now, a sense of urgency in his eyes, a vulnerability that made her heart ache. "I didn't expect to see you again," Lara said, her voice softer than she intended. She had expected him to be a memory, fading like the moon's glow after the night ended. But here he was, standing in front of her, as if the universe had forced them together again. "I didn't want to stay away," Caden replied, his voice low and serious. "But I had to." Lara raised an eyebrow. "Had to?" He nodded. It's complicated. There's a lot I need to explain. Before she could say anything else, Caden stepped forward, his presence overwhelming her senses. He gently placed his hand on her shoulder, and a strange warmth spread through her, filling her with a sense of safety and longing. "I've been away for your protection," he continued. "But it's time I told you the truth. About who I am. And about who you are now, too." Lara felt her pulse quicken. His words were cryptic, but there was a sense of urgency in his voice, as though something was coming. Something she wasn't ready for. "You're not just carrying a child," Caden continued, his gaze never leaving hers. "You're carrying the heir to the Wolf Kingdom." The words hit her like a tidal wave. She took a step back, blinking in disbelief. "What do you mean? The heir? To what Wolf Kingdom?" Caden looked away for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. When he looked back at her, his expression was filled with a mixture of determination and sorrow. "I'm not just a man, Lara. I'm a wolf. A descendant of the ancient werewolf kings. My bloodline is one of power, one that's been hidden for centuries. And the child you carry? He's destined to rule." Lara's mind spun. She felt dizzy, as if the ground beneath her was shifting. This was too much to take in. Werewolves. Kingdoms. Power. It sounded like a fantasy, like something out of a dream, but she could see the sincerity in Caden's eyes. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "This can't be real." Caden stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "It's real, Lara. The blood moon has awakened something between us. Our fates are tied together. I came to you that night because of the pull of the moon. It wasn't just a coincidence, it was destiny." Lara looked down at her hands, still trembling in his grasp. "But I'm just a normal woman. I'm not part of any kingdom. I don't know anything about ruling anything." "You don't have to," Caden said gently. "But your child, our child, will. And so will you, in time. You'll learn everything you need to know. You'll be part of my world, whether you want to or not." Lara's mind was racing. She had never felt so overwhelmed in her life. She wasn't ready for any of this. She wasn't prepared to be the mother of a child destined for greatness, to be tied to a world of power, politics, and danger. But as she looked into Caden's eyes, she realized something: there was no escaping the bond between them. The pull between them, fueled by the moon, was undeniable. Caden's hand cupped her cheek, his touch soft but firm. "I know this is a lot to take in, Lara. But I need you to understand, you're not alone in this. I'll protect you. I'll protect our child. But you have to trust me." Lara closed her eyes, trying to steady her breath. She felt her heart pounding in her chest. There was no going back from this. Whatever had started that night, under the blood moon, had set something into motion that couldn't be undone. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You don't have to do it alone," Caden replied, his voice tender. "You have me. And together, we'll face whatever comes." The weight of his words settled over her like a heavy blanket, but beneath it, there was a flicker of hope. She wasn't sure what the future held, but in that moment, with Caden standing in front of her, she realized that her life had already changed forever. And whether she was ready or not, she was now part of a world much bigger and more dangerous than she had ever imagined. The night air was heavy, thick with the kind of silence that made every creak in the wood and flutter of a curtain sound louder than it should. Lara sat curled on her couch, one hand resting on the gentle curve of her growing belly. The glow from the lamp beside her was dim, casting long shadows along the walls of her modest home. Her mind was far from calm. Caden's words still rang in her ears. "You're not just carrying a child. You're carrying the heir to the Wolf Kingdom. A kingdom. A child of prophecy. A man who was not fully human. She pressed a hand to her forehead, trying to make sense of the whirlwind her life had become. A few weeks ago, she was just a quiet, bookish woman who had never even kissed a man, until that one night, under the blood moon. That night had awakened something in her, something she still couldn't explain. She had felt safe with Caden. Drawn to him. And now, connected to him in a way that terrified her. She jumped at the sound of knocking. 3 soft raps on the door. Deliberate. Calm. Lara's breath caught. It couldn't be. Slowly, she rose from the couch and walked toward the door, her bare feet silent against the wooden floor. Her heart thudded in her chest like a warning. As her fingers closed around the door handle, she hesitated. And then, gently, she opened it. Caden. He stood in the doorway, tall and shadowed, the glow of the moonlight catching the golden hue of his eyes. His presence filled the space instantly. He didn't speak at first. He just looked at her. Not like a man seeing someone he'd slept with once, but like someone seeing something sacred. Lara's eyes welled. With tears, though she didn't know why. You came back, she whispered. I said I would, Caden answered. His voice was low, rough like gravel, but warm, almost reverent. I've never lied to you, Lara. I never will. She stepped aside and let him in, her movements slow, uncertain. As he passed, the air felt thicker, as if the house itself recognized his power. He carried with him the scent of the forest, rain-dampened bark, wildflowers, and something electric, like the air before lightning strikes. They stood in silence for a moment. Caden turned to her. I know you're scared. I'm confused, Lara admitted. You tell me my child is going to rule a kingdom I didn't even know existed. You say you're not fully human. You disappear. Then you show up again like this isn't completely insane. Caden stepped closer. I didn't want to burden you with a truth you hadn't asked for. But I can't stay away anymore. Not with your blood changed. Not with our child growing stronger every day. Her brows pulled together. What do you mean, my blood has changed? He hesitated. You felt it, haven't you? Your senses sharpening. Your dreams. The warmth in your skin. You feel drawn to the moon. She nodded slowly. The child carries my blood, he said softly. And through him, it's waking something in you. The blood moon did more than bring us together. It opened a door. Lara sat down slowly. So what happens now? Caden walked over and knelt before her. He gently placed his hand over hers, resting on her belly. Now, I protect you. I teach you. And I prepare us both for what's coming. My world, it's not kind. And there are those who won't be happy that I've chosen to bind myself to someone human. Bind yourself, she repeated. He looked up into her eyes. I didn't just take you that night, Lara. I claimed you. My wolf, my true nature, recognized you as mine. And it won't let me go. No matter how far I run. Lara's pulse thundered in her ears. You didn't even ask me. I know, he said, voice pained. And I will spend the rest of my life giving you the choice to stay or walk away. But I need you to know what's coming first. She didn't know what to say. Her life had changed so completely, so quickly, and now she was being told she was bound to a wolf king, and the mother of a child destined for something ancient and powerful. And yet, she didn't feel trapped. She felt needed. Chosen. The silence stretched between them, not awkward, but charged. Caden's gaze dropped to her stomach again. I can hear his heartbeat, he said, reverent. Even now. You can hear it. My kind, we hear the world differently. Smell it. Sense it. His hand didn't move, but his eyes flicked up to hers. He's strong. He's going to change everything. Lara looked away. And what about me? What happens to me? Caden rose slowly, standing over her like a shadow cast by the moon. You become a queen, he said simply. Lara's breath caught. She wanted to laugh. She wanted to cry. She wanted to scream that this wasn't fair, that she didn't ask for this. But instead, she stood, facing him, and said, "You stay with me, Caden. No more disappearing." He nodded, stepping closer. Always. From this night on. And as the blood moon reappeared from behind a drifting cloud, its light poured in through the window, bathing the two of them in red. Neither moved. Neither spoke. But in that silence, something ancient stirred. Not just love. Bond. The room was quiet, the kind of stillness that followed something sacred. Lara hadn't moved. She stood only a few feet from him, one hand clutched over her heart, her eyes wide but not afraid. Caden, still half-shifted, with amber eyes glowing and claws slowly retracting, looked back at her, watchful, waiting. She had seen it with her own eyes. Not a vision. Not a dream. But a living man changing right before her. The hair on his arms had thickened, his jaw had subtly reshaped, and those hands, those strong, human hands, had become something else entirely. Yet through it all, he never looked away. He never hid. And somehow, that was what gave her the courage to speak. "You're still, you," Lara whispered. Caden let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The glow in his eyes dimmed to their usual soft amber. His muscles eased. The transformation faded. "I told you," he said quietly. "I'm not hiding anything from you anymore." Lara nodded slowly, her body still adjusting to the shock. Her voice trembled as she moved toward him. That was real. All of it. The dreams. The sensations. The bond. Caden reached for her hand, not forcefully, just an open invitation. She took it. "You're connected to me now," he said. "Not because of the child, but because of what happened under the blood moon. You didn't just carry a part of me that night, you became a part of me." Lara sat down slowly on the couch, her legs shaky. "How do I even begin to live with this truth?" she asked. "What does this mean for me, for us?" Caden knelt in front of her, his tone reverent. "It means we're no longer just individuals. Our fates are entwined. The moon chose us. The bond is permanent." He hesitated, then added, "But you still have choice, Lara. You always will. That's what separates my kind from the monsters we're often mistaken for. We protect what we love, we don't take it." She looked into his eyes, searching for any flicker of manipulation, any hint of deceit. There was none. Just devotion. And something deeper. Suddenly, a dull pain shot through her stomach, not sharp, but enough to make her gasp. Caden's expression turned serious. "What is it?" She gritted her teeth and placed her hand over her lower abdomen. "It's like pressure. Heat." It passed. Caden's brow furrowed. "It's starting sooner than I thought." "What is?" she asked, now alarmed. He looked her in the eyes. "Your child isn't just growing fast, he's awakening. The power in him is already stirring. And the more it grows, the more it affects you. Your body is human. But the life you carry is not fully." Lara felt the words press on her chest. "So what happens to me?" "You'll change," he said softly. "Not into a wolf. But you'll become more than what you were. Stronger. Sharper. You may start sensing emotions. Seeing glimpses of future moments. Some call it wolf sight." Lara leaned back into the couch. "So I'm becoming something else." "You're becoming what the moon intended," Caden said. "And I'll be here for all of it. The silence between them was no longer empty, it was full of electricity. Lara looked down at her hands, then at him. "Can you stay tonight?" Caden didn't hesitate. "I can stay as long as you'll have me." He moved to sit beside her, wrapping one strong arm around her shoulders. She let herself lean against him, her head resting against his chest. His warmth, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, and the faint, wild scent that clung to him calmed her nerves. For the first time in weeks, she let her eyes close, not in fear, but in safety. But Caden's mind didn't rest. He had seen the signs, the torn fabric from the scout in the woods, the ripple of unrest within the kingdom, the way the moon had pulsed brighter tonight. They were running out of time. Later that night, Lara awoke to the sound of rustling. She sat up quickly, only to see Caden at the window, his shirt off, his body silhouetted by the red moonlight pouring in. His ears twitched slightly. His eyes flickered brighter. She stepped quietly to his side. "What is it?" He didn't look at her. "Something's coming. Something, old." From the distance, a faint howl echoed. But this time, it wasn't wild. It was coordinated. It was a warning. The howl echoed again. This time, it was closer. Lara stood at Caden's side, heart racing, arms folded over her chest in the soft glow of moonlight. She didn't need to ask him what it meant. The look in his eyes, focused, alert, told her everything she needed to know. Someone, or something, was coming. Caden didn't move right away. He stood completely still, head slightly tilted, as if the wind was speaking to him. Then, finally, he said, "It's not just a scout this time." Lara's voice was barely a whisper. "What do you mean?" Caden turned, his jaw clenched. "I mean, this wasn't a warning. It was a message. They want us to know they're near." She swallowed hard, glancing over her shoulder into the house, as if the walls could keep out whatever had made that sound. "Who are they?" "The marked ones," Caden replied, voice low and heavy with memory. "They are wolves of the old blood, exiled from the kingdom generations ago. Wolves that walk without honor. They resent the prophecy, and fear what our child represents." Lara's hand instinctively went to her belly. Caden stepped forward and gently placed his hand over hers. "They won't touch you. They'll never get close enough." "What do they want?" "To stop what's already begun," Caden said. "If the prophecy is fulfilled, it means the old order is broken forever. A child born of wolf and woman, they see it as a threat to their existence." Lara looked at him, really looked, his bare chest rising and falling steadily, muscles tense, a flicker of fur still clinging to the back of his hands. He was a king, yes, but a king at war with both his bloodline and fate. And now she was part of that war. "I need to protect you differently now," Caden said, his voice more command than suggestion. "You need a mark." "A what?" He stepped away and opened the drawer of the old sideboard near the window. From it, he pulled out a curved piece of silver, a small blade with ancient etchings. "I need to place my mark on you," he explained. "Not to own you, but to shield you. Wolves, even the dark ones, obey the old signs. With my mark on you, they won't touch you, not unless they want to invoke the wrath." Lara stared at the blade. "What do you mean?" "Mark me. Like a scar. Only a symbol," he said gently. "It won't hurt. But it will bind my protection to your body." For a moment, Lara hesitated. But then she nodded. "Do it." Caden walked toward her, his presence calm, his energy wrapped in something both powerful and reverent. He knelt before her again, not as a king, not as a wolf, but as her protector. He dipped his thumb against the silver edge of the blade, drawing the tiniest drop of his blood. Then, with a slow, precise motion, he traced a crescent-shaped line over her lower stomach. The blood shimmered faintly, then vanished into her skin as if absorbed by magic. Lara gasped, not from pain, but from sensation. She felt it. A sudden warmth that spread from the mark, over her belly, down her limbs, and into her spine. Her breath caught. It wasn't painful, it was empowering. Her body felt stronger. "It's done," Caden said, standing. She looked down at her stomach, where the mark had disappeared, but somehow, she knew it was there. "Will it protect the baby too?" she asked. Caden nodded. "As long as you live, no wolf can touch him without facing me." Lara exhaled slowly. "Then we fight." Caden's expression changed, pride flickered in his eyes. "You're braver than I ever was." "I'm a mother now," she replied. "We don't get to be afraid." Outside, deep in the forest. Under the trees, unseen by human eyes, 4 figures circled. Their skin bore ancient symbols burned into their flesh. Their eyes glowed white, unlike Caden's golden hue. They spoke in low growls, a language older than the kingdom itself. "She is marked," one said. "Too late to stop it now," said another. "We should have killed the bloodline centuries ago." The largest one stepped forward, lips curling into a snarl. "Then we'll kill them both. Slowly. And when the child is born, we'll drink his howl." They melted into the trees, their shapes becoming mist in the red light of the moon. The morning after the howl, the sky was heavy with clouds, but the air was sharp with tension. Lara stood in the kitchen, staring down at the untouched cup of tea in her hands. She hadn't slept. Neither had Caden. He had stayed near the window all night, eyes glowing faintly, listening for any sign of movement beyond the trees. But nothing came. Just silence. The kind of silence that whispered, "We're watching you." She placed the cup down and pressed her hands over her stomach. She was starting to show more now. The curve was gentle, but unmistakable. And with it, the energy inside her was changing. Not just fluttering, not just the expected stir of life, but warmth. Awareness. Sometimes when she touched her belly, her hand tingled, like it was brushing against something living with its own thoughts. Her child wasn't just growing. He was waking up. Caden entered the room quietly, wearing a dark shirt, his brows still furrowed. He didn't speak until he reached her. "They didn't attack." "Not yet," he said. Lara turned to him. "What are they waiting for?" "A full moon," he answered. "Not the blood moon. The next one. It's a crossing point. The veil between realms gets thinner. That's when old blood can move more freely." "And you think they'll come for us then?" Caden nodded. "Unless we strike first." Lara blinked. "Strike? I thought we were hiding." "We were," he said. "But this is no longer just about protecting you. It's about claiming what's ours. The child isn't only a threat to them, he's hope to others." "Others like who?" Caden took a deep breath and stepped to the window. "There are wolves still loyal to the old kingdom. Exiles like me. Outcasts. Some gave up. Others wait for a reason to rise. A sign." Lara narrowed her eyes. "You think the baby is that sign?" "I know he is," Caden said. "But they won't move unless I call them. And for that, we need to go back." "Back where?" He turned. "The Hollow." Lara had never heard of it, but the name made her skin prickle. "The Hollow is neutral ground," Caden continued. "Sacred. Safe, if we follow the rites. It's hidden between worlds, protected by the Moon Elders. They'll know what's coming, and they'll know how to fight it." Lara hesitated, feeling the growing pressure inside her. "How soon?" "Tonight," he said. "We leave before sunset." Lara stood in front of the mirror, brushing her hair back. She wore a long, deep green cloak Caden had brought her, woven from fabric that shimmered faintly when moonlight hit it. The moment she put it on, she felt unseen. Protected. Like something sacred was woven into the threads. Caden returned carrying a small carved satchel. Inside were herbs, a silver medallion, and a vial of dark crimson liquid. "Drink this before we cross," he said. "It'll help your body adjust. The hollow is old magic. It won't harm you, but it might test you." She took the vial and met his gaze. "Will I see things?" "Yes," he said simply. "Visions. Truths. Fears. And maybe, who our son will become." They walked in silence through the thick woods, guided only by the moonlight. Caden moved ahead, his posture calm, every step deliberate. Lara followed, her heart pounding in rhythm with her baby's slow, steady kicks. Eventually, the trees gave way to a stone arch half buried in moss. Ancient runes glowed faintly across its surface. "The hollow is through here," Caden said, turning to face her. "You have to enter first. Only the mother of the chosen can open the gate." Lara stepped forward. The air shifted. The moment her foot crossed beneath the arch, the forest melted away. And the hollow opened. The sky was a swirl of stars and silver clouds, floating far above an endless field of grass lit by glowing stones. Strange trees lined the horizon, their leaves whispering softly in a language she didn't know but felt in her bones. At the center of it all was a large circle of stones. Waiting there were 5 cloaked figures, the Moon Elders. Caden knelt immediately. Lara stood frozen. One of the figures stepped forward. The cloak parted slightly to reveal eyes the color of ash and silver. "You carry the child of prophecy," she said in a voice that echoed without echoing. "And the wolves have started to move. But tell us, Mother, do you know what it means to carry a king?" Lara's heart trembled. "No," she whispered. "But I want to." The elder extended her hand. "Then step forward. Let the hollow show you." And as Lara took that step, her vision swirled into light. A battlefield of fire. A boy with glowing eyes commanding wolves. A crown made of bone and silver. A scream in the darkness. And her own voice, whispering his name. When she came to, she was on her knees, breathless. Caden was beside her, holding her hand. "You saw it?" he asked. Lara nodded. "Everything." The hollow hummed with silence. Not absence, but reverence. Lara sat beside Caden on the glowing stone floor, the last traces of the vision still flickering behind her eyes. Her breathing had slowed, but her heart remained heavy. What she had seen wasn't just a glimpse into the future, it was a declaration. Their child was destined to lead, but his path would not be easy. She turned her face toward Caden. He didn't speak, only studied her quietly. He knew better than to rush her thoughts. The Moon Elders still stood nearby, their presence calm and unhurried, like time itself bent around them. Finally, Lara whispered, "I saw him." Caden leaned closer. "What did you see?" She searched for the right words. "He was strong. Not just powerful, wise. There were wolves at his side, and fire all around him. He stood on the edge of something terrible, but he didn't flinch. He looked right into it." Caden's hand squeezed hers. "He's yours," he said softly. "That strength, it's from you." Lara blinked. There was a throne. "The throne of the Hollow King," one of the elders said from behind them. Her voice didn't echo, it resonated. "It has waited centuries for one born of union. A son of both bloodlines." Lara looked down at her belly. A strange comfort had settled there now, no longer just warmth, but recognition. The child inside her felt awake. "I heard myself say his name," she added, almost in disbelief. The elders leaned forward. Caden turned his eyes toward her. "What name?" Lara looked up. Adern. The air shifted. Even the hollow seemed to respond. The glowing stones pulsed once, as if the realm itself acknowledged the name. Adern, one of the elders repeated reverently. It is not a name of chance. It means, the one who leads the dusk to dawn. He will be the end of the old, and the beginning of the new. Caden touched her face gently. You already know him. I do, she whispered. He's watching. From inside. I can feel him. Hours later, Lara and Caden stepped back through the mossy arch that had led them to the hollow. The night forest greeted them again, but something had changed. The air was colder. Still. The silence was no longer peaceful, it was waiting. Caden's expression hardened. He sniffed the air, his posture shifting instantly. They've been here. Lara froze. The marked ones? Caden nodded. Their scent is old, but not too old. They didn't enter the hollow, but they watched. Lara's hand went to her belly. Do they know about the name? No, Caden said. But they'll feel it. The hollow doesn't whisper, when it speaks, the whole forest listens. He motioned for them to keep walking. They made their way back to Lara's home, now their shared sanctuary. But even as they entered, Caden didn't relax. He checked every window, every corner. He could feel the shadows thickening outside. Lara sat at her writing desk, wrapped in one of Caden's soft cloaks. She had begun to journal her dreams ever since the blood moon, and now, she added a new entry. Tonight, I named our son. Not in theory, but in truth. His name is Adern. He will not walk a simple path. But he will not walk it alone. I will walk beside him, with every breath I have left. She put the pen down, her fingers trembling slightly, not with fear, but with resolve. Behind her, Caden entered the room and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. You're stronger than you know, he said softly. She smiled. So are you. They stood for a long time in that quiet night. No more visions. No more war councils. Just the two of them. Two souls bound by fate and choice, standing between the past and what was to come. And in Lara's womb, the child stirred again, more certain than ever. He had a name now. And soon, the world would know it. The house was quiet, but the energy inside it was not. Caden paced the edge of the room with measured steps, his wolf side still alert. The hollow's blessing had given Lara strength, but it had also stirred the air like a beacon, and the marked ones would no doubt feel the shift. Something sacred had been declared, the child had a name. Adern. Even in silence, it echoed. Lara, still at the desk, gently rubbed her growing belly. A calm had settled in her since their return, the chaos outside no longer rattling her heart the same way. She was changed. Not just marked, but claimed by purpose. The name had come to her like breath, not from the mind, but from the soul. And her son knew it too. I keep feeling him more, she said softly, her voice breaking Caden from his thoughts. Not just the kicks, but his presence. Caden stopped pacing and sat beside her. That's part of the hollow's gift. You're more bonded now than most mothers are at this stage. She looked at him. Is that why I feel his emotions? Caden nodded. He feels yours too. If you're afraid, he'll feel it. If you're calm, he'll draw strength from it. Lara rested her hand over her heart. Then I won't give him fear. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers. He's already proud of you. As the moon climbed higher in the night sky, Lara awoke with a jolt. Her skin was flushed. Her heart raced. Her vision blurred for a moment, and then, she felt it. Not pain. Not exactly. But power. Surging through her like a river. She sat up, gasping, one hand braced against the bed frame. Caden rushed in, already halfway shifted. What is it? Lara's eyes flicked up to him. He's waking. Caden moved to her side, placing both hands over her belly. He's responding to the moon. It's not just full, it's aligned. A wolf moon. It strengthens the unborn. It strengthens you. Lara doubled over slightly, not from pain, but intensity. Her skin tingled. Her breath caught in her throat as warmth spread through her spine. Suddenly, images flashed before her eyes. The forest. A pack of wolves circling around a boy. The boy standing, eyes glowing gold, whispering to them. They bowed. She snapped back to the present with a cry. Caden caught her. What did you see? Lara looked up at him, eyes wide and shimmering with something between awe and fear. They already follow him. Caden froze. Who? He asked. Lara's voice was quiet. The wild wolves. The ones that don't bow to any bloodline. They've already chosen him. Caden let that sink in. It was rare, nearly impossible, for the unclaimed wolves of the ancient woods to bond with anyone, let alone an unborn child. But if they had, it meant Adarn's spirit had already begun to lead. He's claiming his throne, from the womb, Caden whispered. Lara leaned into him, exhausted but filled with a strange peace. He's not waiting. Caden held her close. Then neither will we. In the backyard under the full moon, Caden began drawing a circle of protective ash and herbs. Lara, now draped in a moon-colored shawl from the hollow, stood at the center. This wasn't war. It was announcement. The old ways called it the whispering. A sacred rite where the parents of a foretold heir spoke the child's name into the moonlight, sealing it in the stars. Caden held Lara's hand as they stood within the circle. Lara closed her eyes and whispered, Adarn. Caden echoed it, his voice deep and full of power. Adarn, son of the hollow and flame. The one who leads dusk into dawn. And above them, the moon pulsed once. Lara felt it in her bones. The universe had heard. The wind shifted. Not in temperature or direction, but in spirit. Lara felt it first, just before dawn. A sudden change in the air, like a new breath had entered the world. She stood on the back porch, wrapped in her shawl, the hem brushing her ankles. Her belly was growing heavier now, not uncomfortably, but with an undeniable presence. Her hands rested over it as if to ground herself. Behind her, Caden stepped out, silent but aware. You feel it too? She asked. He nodded. They're coming. Who? Caden looked out toward the horizon. The wolves who still remember. The ones who never bent to the old throne. They've waited years in silence for a reason to rise. And they're coming here. He turned to her. They're coming for him. By evening, the forest felt alive with movement, not threatening, but purposeful. Lara stood by the front window, watching. Then she saw them, figures moving between the trees. Men and women, some cloaked in animal hides, others shirtless and painted with symbols. Their eyes glowed faintly in the growing darkness. Not like Caden's golden glow, theirs shimmered silver, green, and deep violet. Each one bore the mark of a rogue wolf, outcasts, loners, and legends. One by one, they entered the clearing and stood at the edge of her home's boundary. Caden stepped out to greet them. He stood tall, shoulders squared, but his voice was calm. You came. One of them, a woman with close-cropped hair and eyes like cracked stone, stepped forward. You called. No, Caden said. He did. He turned slightly toward the house, toward Lara. Toward the child. That night, a fire was built in the clearing. Lara watched from the porch as Caden stood in the firelight, surrounded by the wolves who had once lived without a king. There were 12 in total, men and women, some older than Caden, others barely adults. They weren't soldiers. They weren't friends. But they were believers. Caden spoke, his voice firm. The marked ones are moving. You've all heard the howls in the trees. The group murmured, some nodding, others narrowing their eyes. They think we're still divided. Still scattered. Still ashamed. But we're not. Not anymore. One of them, a tall man with braids down his back, asked, and why now? Why stand again? Caden pointed to the house. Because he's coming. The wolves fell silent. Lara stepped forward, slowly walking out of the house and into the firelight. She stood beside Caden, one hand on her belly. The child you speak of, she said, her voice even, is not a symbol. He's real. He lives. And he will not rise alone. For a moment, there was only the crackling of fire. Then the woman with the stone eyes spoke. You're not a wolf. But you speak like one. Lara smiled faintly. Maybe that's because I carry one. The fire flared, unprompted, and every wolf turned their gaze toward her with something between respect and reverence. Later that night, after the wolves had eaten and settled into silence around the fire, Lara and Caden sat alone beneath the moon. They'll fight, he said. They just needed to remember what unity felt like. Lara leaned into his side. And what about the others? There are more, he said. Scattered through the mountains. Some in exile. Some, hiding in human skin. Will they join us? They'll follow the signs. Lara looked at him. And what happens when the marked ones arrive? Caden was quiet for a long time. Then, we won't wait. Before dawn, Lara found herself writing again. Not in her journal, but in a letter. It was addressed not to a person, but to Adarn. My son. Before you are born, I want you to know something. The world feared you before they ever saw your face. That's how I know you're meant to change it. But no matter what power you carry, you are still my child. I will protect you. I will walk beside you. I will howl with you, if it comes to that. Mama. She placed the letter into a small wooden box lined with moonstone, a gift from one of the wolf women, and tucked it beneath her pillow. She didn't cry. She didn't doubt. She was ready. The fire had burned low. The circle of wolves sat in thoughtful silence, watching the red coals pulse in the darkness. The wind shifted again, not cold this time, but charged. Something was coming. Lara could feel it. She stood slowly from the log where she had been sitting with Caden, placing her hand gently over her belly. He's stirring, she whispered. Caden looked at her with concern. Pain. She shook her head. No. Awareness. He feels them. The gathered wolves all turned to her. She means the boy, said the braided man, his voice low and gravelly. The boy with no crown, but the howl of a king, said another. Let him speak, murmured the woman with stone eyes. Lara was confused. Speak. He's not born yet. But the braided man stepped forward, slowly, eyes locked on her belly. He is speaking. Not with words, with presence. He's already calling us. Caden stood up, cautious. What do you mean? The man bent one knee to the earth, lowering his head slightly. I mean that I came here expecting you, Caden. I didn't expect to feel him. The woman with stone eyes followed. One by one, the rest did the same. They knelt. Not to Caden. To Lara. To the unborn child. To Adarn. Caden had never seen anything like it. These were wolves who didn't kneel. Outlaws. Wild bloods. Lone hunters who respected no throne, no crest, no memory of power. And here they were, heads bowed to the child inside his mate. Lara looked overwhelmed but steady. Why are you doing this? The braided wolf spoke for the group. Because the hollow touched him. Because the old blood sings when you speak his name. Because the moon shifts for him. Caden stepped forward. Then if you believe, swear it. The man looked up. Swear what? That you'll follow him. Not just when he rises, but now, when he's vulnerable. When we are few. Each wolf stood in turn, one after the other, placing their right hand across their heart. We swear to the son of the hollow, said the woman with stone eyes. We swear to protect his howl, said another. We swear to follow his path, echoed a third. Caden turned to Lara. They've sworn to him. But they've sworn to you too. Lara blinked. Me? He nodded. Until he can lead, they will look to his mother. Later, long after midnight, as the last embers of the fire cooled, a lone howl rose from the edge of the trees. Then another. Then 3 more. Lara stood on the porch, clutching her shawl. They're answering, she whispered. Caden stepped beside her, wrapping an arm protectively around her shoulders. Not the marked ones. The others. The ones who've waited. They're coming. Then, a deep, echoing howl from far off. Ancient. Resonant. It was a call from a distance no normal wolf could cross in a single night. But this was no normal night. They heard his name, Caden said quietly. And in Lara's belly, Adarn stirred again. As the sun began to break over the horizon, the sky washed with pale gold and lavender, Lara sat back at her desk. She retrieved the letter she had written for Adarn, rereading her own words, feeling their truth more than ever. She added one final line. The forest no longer sleeps. It waits for you. She closed the box. Caden appeared in the doorway. They'll be here by tonight. Friends or enemies, she asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, both. She stood. I'll be ready. The forest no longer whispered. It waited. By the next evening, the wolves who had gathered in the clearing had not left. More had arrived, strangers who said nothing, only nodded to Caden and looked curiously at Lara. Some came alone. Some came in pairs. Some came crawling on 4 legs and shifted into human form at the fire's edge. The old wolf paths had been reawakened. Word had spread. The child has a name. The hollow has acknowledged him. The wild ones are kneeling. And now, every shadow beyond the trees held a pair of watching eyes, some loyal, some not. Caden moved like a shadow across the training field, a wide circle now cleared in the woods behind the house. The wolves were not soldiers. They were instinct. Ferocious. Quick. But uncoordinated. Caden barked orders, forcing them to move together, shift together, read each other's motions like wind over water. Lara stood at the edge, her belly cradled in both hands, watching. These aren't warriors, said a voice beside her. She turned. The woman with stone-gray eyes stood beside her, arms crossed. They're wild. You can't break wild with drills. I don't want to break them, Lara said. I want them to survive. The woman gave her a sideways look. You already talk like his mother. I am his mother. No, the woman said. You're his voice. At midnight, Caden called them all together in a half-moon circle around the fire. He stood, cloak pulled tight around him, the firelight flickering in his golden eyes. The marked ones will not wait. They've felt his name in the earth. They've heard the howls. His gaze swept the crowd. They'll come with silver and shadow. They'll come to destroy before he can be born. We don't fear death, one of the wolves growled. You should, Caden said. Because this time, it's not your life on the line. It's his. He stepped aside. And Lara walked into the center. The firelight warmed her skin, casting a red glow across her robe and rounding belly. Her voice was soft, but it carried. "I don't ask you to die for my son," she said. "But I do ask you to live for him. To fight so he can come into a world that still has hope in it." She turned slowly. "He is not a weapon. He is not a crown. He is a child. But he is also more than we have seen before." The wolves didn't growl. They didn't cheer. They bowed their heads. Silently, together. Caden approached her by the fire, holding something wrapped in red cloth. "What is it?" Lara asked. He unwrapped it. Inside was a small blade made of black iron and moonstone, ancient, glowing softly. "The old way," he said. "One mark, shared by all, burned into wood. So no matter where we go, no matter who we lose, the symbol lives." He held up a long, smooth plank. On it, each wolf had already carved their claw mark. Lara hesitated. Caden handed her the blade. "Your mark joins last. It completes the bond." She took the blade with a breath and etched a symbol, not a line, not a slash. But a circle. Whole. Unbroken. When she stepped back, the moon above flared briefly, a silver pulse through the sky. The oath was complete. Much later, when the fires had gone low and most of the wolves had slipped into sleep, Caden stood watch at the edge of the trees. Then he smelled it. Not rot. Not blood. But ancient fur. Old smoke. Bone magic. His eyes narrowed. He turned, fast, but it was already standing there. A figure cloaked in raven feathers. Eyes glowing white. No scent. A marked one. But it did not attack. It simply said, "He is not yet born. But he howls already." Caden bared his teeth. "You come to spy." The figure didn't flinch. "We came to warn." Lies. The figure tilted its head. "Not all of us wish to see the end. Some of us, remember the old king. And you." Caden's growl deepened. The figure vanished before he could move, as if it had been made of smoke all along. That night, Lara dreamed. In the dream, she stood on a great battlefield, wolves all around her. And at the center stood a boy, no older than 7, with golden eyes and a silver crown of braided branches. He reached for her hand. And when he touched her, she heard his voice for the first time. "I'm coming, Mama. But they want to stop me. Don't let them." She woke with tears on her cheeks. And a silent vow in her heart. "Tohi will not stop you. Even if I have to become something I've never been to protect you." The morning came gray. Not stormy. Not bright. Just, waiting. Lara sat on the porch steps, her shawl pulled tightly around her shoulders. Dew clung to the tall grass, and mist hung over the trees like breath that hadn't been exhaled. The letter she'd written to Adiron still rested in the moonstone box beneath her pillow. She hadn't told anyone about the dream. Not even Caden. She just knew, it hadn't been just a dream. It was a warning. They want to stop me. And now the sky held its breath. Mid-morning. Caden stood over a rough wooden table in the clearing, studying a hand-drawn map. Stones marked known paths. Bones marked enemy movement. 3 wolves returned from the northern trail, dirt-smudged and breathing hard. "They're moving," one of them said. 5 at least. Maybe more. "Marked ones?" Caden asked. The scout nodded. "Didn't show their faces. But the scent was wrong. Like iron and ash." Lara stepped closer. "How close?" "By nightfall," the scout replied. Caden nodded once. "Prepare the line. Back inside the house, Lara pulled open the wardrobe. Caden entered behind her. "You're not going out there," he said gently, but firmly. She turned to him. "I'm not hiding while they come for our son." "You're pregnant, Lara." "I'm also connected to him in ways none of you are," she said, her voice quiet but unwavering. "They're not just coming for his blood, Caden. They're coming for his future. And I won't sit behind a wall and wait to find out if he has one." Caden stepped closer. "Then stay with me." She looked up. "Always." They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Caden picked up a leather pendant from a small carved box. It held a single stone from the hollow, glowing faintly with Adarn's energy. "Wear this," he said. "It'll shield you if they try to reach him, spiritually." She took it and slipped it over her neck. Instantly, warmth bloomed against her skin. That evening, as the sun bled behind the trees, Caden led a group of wolves to the outer ring of the clearing, near a forgotten stone marker etched with ancient runes. "This is the border," he said. "Cross it, and we're no longer guarding. We're hunting." They smeared ash and blood across their arms, ancient symbols drawn in silence. Lara watched from the trees, standing beside the woman with stone-gray eyes. "You were a hunter once," Lara said to her. "Still am," the woman replied. "But tonight I hunt for your son." A howl echoed from deep in the forest, one long, one low, one broken. "They're here," someone whispered. Caden shifted, not into full wolf, but enough. His eyes glowed. His muscles tensed. The others followed suit. And as they stepped beyond the stone line, the war began. The marked ones didn't arrive with fanfare. They came like fog. Lara stood near the fire, holding the pendant in her. Breathing slow and deep. She could feel them, a cold ripple through her spine, like teeth on glass. Then movement. Shadows bending. Trees shifting. And then, a shape. Not man. Not wolf. Something in between. Black like dried blood, bones wrapped in skin too tight, and eyes, glowing with soulless hunger. The marked ones had arrived. The first to lunge was met midair by Caden. A blur. A roar. A crack of bone against bone. Others charged the wolves' line. Lara didn't move. She closed her eyes. "I'm coming, Mama." Adarn's voice again, steady, calm, even as the world turned violent around her. Then, light. The pendant against her chest burned hot, and when she opened her eyes, the nearest marked one had stopped mid-step. Snarling. Hissing. But it would not cross the firelight around her. The hollow's gift had formed a barrier. She was the center of the storm, and untouched. Not all the wild wolves survived. One, the youngest, barely shifted. Fell as a marked one buried its claws deep into his side. He cried out once, then was still. The others howled, pushing forward. Caden ripped through too, his body half shifted, his arms clawed and torn. But he didn't stop. He moved like fury incarnate. But Lara saw the toll in his eyes. They couldn't win by force. As the fight reached its height, Lara stepped forward, pendant glowing, and knelt on the ground near the fire. She placed both hands on the earth. And whispered, "Let him speak." For a moment, nothing. Then the wind shifted. The fire flared. And from Lara's mouth came a howl, not her own voice, but her child's. Young. Pure. Terrible in power. It rang through the forest like a bell. Every wolf paused. Even the marked ones flinched. And from the deep woods came an answer. Not Caden. Not the others. But wolves who hadn't answered in years. From exile. From mountains. From hiding places deep in the hollowed earth. They were coming. The child had spoken. And the old blood had heard. The howl had ended. But its echo hadn't. All through the night, the forest trembled. Not with fear, but with return. The kind of silence that came before the ground opened. Before bones remembered their names. Lara sat by the dying fire. The pendant at her chest had cooled, but its light still glowed faintly, steady, protective. She was exhausted. Her voice was gone. But inside her, Adarn stirred with calm strength. As if he, too, had witnessed what was coming. And welcomed it. Dawn came red. Smoke curled upward from scattered embers where the battle had burned through the clearing. 2 wolves had fallen. One was being buried at the edge of the woods, their body wrapped in linen and covered in pine branches. The others stood in silence, warriors and strangers alike, heads bowed. Caden didn't speak. He only laid the blade they had once trained with across the chest of the fallen. Then he turned and walked back to the fire. Breathing slow and deep. She could feel them, a cold ripple through her spine, like teeth on glass. Then movement. Shadows bending. Trees shifting. And then, a shape. Not man. Not wolf. Something in between. Black like dried blood, bones wrapped in skin too tight, and eyes, glowing with soulless hunger. The marked ones had arrived. The first to lunge was met mid-air by Caden. A blur. A roar. A crack of bone against bone. Others charged the wolves' line. Lara didn't move. She closed her eyes. "I'm coming, Mama." Adarn's voice again, steady, calm, even as the world turned violent around her. Then, light. The pendant against her chest burned hot, and when she opened her eyes, the nearest marked one had stopped mid-step. Snarling. Hissing. But it would not cross the firelight around her. The hollow's gift had formed a barrier. She was the center of the storm, and untouched. Not all the wild wolves survived. One, the youngest, barely shifted. Fell as a marked one buried its claws deep into his side. He cried out once, then was still. The others howled, pushing forward. Caden ripped through too, his body half shifted, his arms clawed and torn. But he didn't stop. He moved like fury incarnate. But Lara saw the toll in his eyes. They couldn't win by force. As the fight reached its height, Lara stepped forward, pendant glowing, and knelt on the ground near the fire. She placed both hands on the earth. And whispered, "Let him speak." For a moment, nothing. Then the wind shifted. The fire flared. And from Lara's mouth came a howl, not her own voice, but her child's. Young. Pure. Terrible in power. It rang through the forest like a bell. Every wolf paused. Even the marked ones flinched. And from the deep woods came an answer. Not Caden. Not the others. But wolves who hadn't answered in years. From exile. From mountains. From hiding places deep in the hollowed earth. They were coming. The child had spoken. And the old blood had heard. The howl had ended. But its echo hadn't. All through the night, the forest trembled. Not with fear, but with return. The kind of silence that came before the ground opened. Before bones remembered their names. Lara sat by the dying fire. The pendant at her chest had cooled, but its light still glowed faintly, steady, protective. She was exhausted. Her voice was gone. But inside her, Adarn stirred with calm strength. As if he, too, had witnessed what was coming. And welcomed it. Dawn came red. Smoke curled upward from scattered embers where the battle had burned through the clearing. 2 wolves had fallen. One was being buried at the edge of the woods, their body wrapped in linen and covered in pine branches. The others stood in silence, warriors and strangers alike, heads bowed. Caden didn't speak. He only laid the blade they had once trained with across the chest of the fallen. Then he turned and walked back to the fire. Lara waited for him. They came because of him, he said quietly. And they died believing in him, she replied. Too soon. No, she said. Just in time. She lifted her eyes to the trees. They've awakened. By midday, the first of the ancients arrived. Not in human form. Not with words. The ground trembled slightly as a tall, ash-gray wolf stepped into the clearing, massive, its fur like smoke, eyes silver and wise. On its back were twisted bands of bone, armor, ancient and symbolic. It did not growl. It did not bow. It simply approached Lara, and stopped. Others followed. 7 wolves in total. Some limping, some scarred, one missing an eye, each one older than time itself, survivors of the first blood oath. Caden stood beside Lara, fists clenched. They haven't shown themselves in centuries. They heard him, Lara said. The lead wolf slowly lowered its head, and touched its snout to her belly. Lara gasped, not from pain, but from the weight of the connection. Flashes filled her mind. Wolves in a circle. A great silver tree. A crown buried in soil. A child lifting it. The wolf lifted its head and stepped back. Then, with a soft growl, it turned, and sat. The others followed. They had come to wait. Not to fight. But to protect. That night, Lara sat alone by the fire while the others patrolled. Her journal lay on her lap, open. The moon was nearly full again, it would crest in just 2 nights. She held the pendant in one hand, her pen in the other. And then, the fire shifted. The flames leaned sideways as if moved by a breath, though no wind blew. A figure stepped from the other side of the fire, not real, but seen. A man. Pale eyes. Skin like moonstone. His robes were torn and his feet bare. A scar crossed his cheek in the shape of a crescent. He looked at her with eyes that weren't cruel, but ancient. You are the one, he said. Lara didn't flinch. Who are you? One who failed, he replied. And one who must warn. She said nothing. The flames flared again. Your child is not the first to carry the hollow, he said. She gripped the pendant. He is the first to survive it. Lara couldn't sleep. Caden came to her side, sensing something deeper was stirring. What is it? She stared into the night. That man, or spirit, he said Adiron is the first to survive the hollow. Caden frowned. What does that mean? She slowly turned toward him. That others like him were born before. But none of them made it. Caden's voice dropped. Then why him? She looked down at her hands. Because of me. Caden blinked. You. She nodded slowly. He carries your blood. But he lives because of mine. Silence. Caden stepped back slightly, studying her face. You think, you're part of it? I don't think, she whispered. I know. She turned and walked into the moonlight, the pendant. Glowing again, not in response to Adiron, but to her. Her body had changed. Her mind had opened. But something older had awakened. Something she had never known lived inside her at all. Until now. In the deepest part of the forest, where roots from the old hollow tree still sleep, the earth began to pulse faintly. Not tremble. Not quake. Pulse. Like a heartbeat. And from deep beneath, where old kings were buried and old secrets laid in bone, a voice whispered. One has survived. And she is not alone. The child is rising. But so is the flame beneath the root. The moon rose faster now. Full, pale, restless. Lara stood at the edge of the forest, staring into the dark line of trees where the ancient wolves had vanished hours ago. They had come. They had bowed. They had waited. And then, without a word, they had disappeared. Only the scent of earth and bone remained. Something was shifting. She felt it in her palms. In her spine. In her dreams. Even in her silence. For days, Lara hadn't slept deeply. Each time she closed her eyes, she slipped into a world beneath the one she knew, a space made of ash and light, where wolves with golden ribs howled wordless songs and stars bled silver across dark skies. And in the center of it a woman. Not herself. But somehow, her. The woman stood barefoot in flames, her hands cupped around a tiny light. A child? A star? She never saw its face. But the woman always whispered the same thing before vanishing. You are the vessel of the first fire. But he is the spark. Lara woke that night with her hands glowing. Faint golden trails ran beneath her skin like fire-colored veins, and disappeared the moment Caden touched her arm. The next morning, the wild wolves gathered near the hollow stones, the ancient ring of smooth rocks that once marked the entrance to the blood temple. The air pulsed with quiet heat. The ancients had left something behind. A stone bowl carved with a symbol only Lara recognized. The circle. Not broken. Not fanged. Whole. She stepped into the center. The fire burned low and silent, waiting. And when she touched the bowl, images slammed into her. A child in white running through fog. A crown made of bark. A heart pierced by a claw, and still beating. She fell to her knees, gasping. And then she heard them. The ancients. He is almost here. And so is the one who tried to silence us. That night, Caden returned from a solo patrol, tense and silent. Lara met him at the porch. You found something. He nodded. Tracks massive. But not a wolf. Her blood went cold. What then? He didn't answer immediately. Then, it walked like a man. But it left no scent. The trees bowed where it passed. Even the spirits are silent. Lara's hand moved to her belly instinctively. Is it coming here? Caden looked her in the eye. It's already in the forest. Lara sat alone later that night, unable to rest. The pendant had begun glowing on its own. Her skin felt hot beneath her robe. The dream came again. The woman. The fire. The whisper. But this time, the woman turned. And Lara saw her own face, older, brighter, wreathed in flame and sorrow. The woman stepped forward and said, You are not the first to carry this blood. But you may be the last. Lara awoke standing, outside, barefoot, beneath the hollow tree. Caden rushed toward her from the shadows. Lara, how did you get out here? She looked down. Her feet were burned. But she felt no pain. The tree pulsed with light above her, roots glowing faintly like veins. She whispered, It's waking. Deep, deep beneath the forest floor, stone began to crack. Roots pulled back like curtains. And in the darkness, something exhaled. A breath old enough to have forgotten its name. A breath that had once ruled with claws of bone and skin of silver. A voice whispered from the dark. The boy cannot be born. Or the world will burn brighter than I can bury. And for the first time since the first war, the buried king opened one glowing eye.